This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here. Nothing valued is here. We considered ourselves to be a powerful culture. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us.
It is quite easily visible that over the course of our multiple millennia of continued existence that we as human beings have polluted the landscape in multiple ways. And so, it should come as no surprise that the responsibility to clean up what we can and warn the future generations of what we couldn't is a heavy one. Because the land was not willed to you by your ancestors, it was loaned to you by your children. The disposal of spent nuclear fuel, high-level and transuranic radioactive wastes is a question that has been pretty much figured out. Dig deep into the earth, preferably in a salt bed, because the salt in those depths would exist in a sort of liquid-like state that could block leakages. Dump it all in there, seal and forget. Except it's not that simple because of course it isn't. The Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, or the WIPP, located in New Mexico is one such deep geological repository for radioactive wastes that after it began its operations in 1999 could remain radioactive for more than tens of thousands of years. And that's where the problems arise. Just who or what is going to hang around that long to let people know the dangers of disturbing a nuclear waste facility? Of course, we do have the conventional symbols for biohazard and radioactive materials, but what guarantee do we have that these symbols and words would even hold any meaning to a civilization that decides to dig into the toxic land 10,000 years from now? And so, we did what we do best: research. To avoid any cases of people accidentally digging through the area in search of resources, like one usually does, any disposal site must be marked by a multi-component system constructed from materials of little recycle value, designed to convey truthful and informative warning messages through varying levels of complexity and diverse modes of communication, such as language, pictograms, and scientific graphs. Because that is the real issue at hand here. Sending a coded message that could be deciphered and read through is not a new or particularly difficult task. We had already sent one to the aliens on a golden platter nonetheless. It's more of a question of how do you deter the very human impulse to do what we are explicitly told not to. A panel called the Human Interference Task Force was set up to expertly analyze and come up with a solution to this problem, with people of all expertise ranging from linguistics, semiotics, archaeology, architecture, anthropology, and even astronomy. The research ultimately aimed at creating a 4-level warning system to be placed above ground at the WIPP facility. Now, 10,000 years is a long amount of time. To put that into perspective, 10,000 years is what the Stone Age is to us. A message from that long ago can't just be durable, it needs to be adequately decipherable. With one huge assumption that literacy has never ceased to exist since the 6,000 years it first appeared holding true for the future, the researchers began work at the ultimate warning for your children thrice 100 generations removed. As mentioned earlier, the research was aimed at making the message excessively redundant and involving of language and pictograms. The idea to involve language comes from the notion that if society only evolved straight ahead without any abrupt end to the society we know of today, then maybe it would be possible to reverse engineer languages or even expect future generations to keep adding their own warnings onto the inscriptions, as if it were some living warning sign that mutates to adapt to the necessity of the era. Quite poetic for a nuclear waste facility. Of course, a word in and of itself would not serve to help with any containment or deterrent, it would just be a good little puzzle to solve for curious linguists of the future. And so the researchers needed to come up with a message, one that would be truthful and unambiguous, one that would let the place be understood as one that the coming generations would be better off not liking to spend a lot of time at. But an issue with verbal warnings and threats against the well-being of the trespasser is that it is the very cliché dialogue that would most definitely be used to hide treasures from prying eyes. Be careful, ye all who enter here, for you shall be cursed with a fate worse than death. Sounds exactly like the non-existent curses that we dismiss from our current archaeological discoveries as superstition. Hearing something like that would perk up a curious historian and get him dashing to secure that ARPA permit. But only we are aware of the actual invisible killer we currently call radiation. So, all we could really hope to achieve with language is to convey information that something man-made is here and that it is dangerous. And that is how we ended up with the following message.
This place is a message and part of a system of messages. Pay attention to it. Sending this message was important to us. We considered ourselves to be a powerful culture. This place is not a place of honor. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here. Nothing valued is here. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us. This message is a warning about danger. The danger is to the body and it can kill. The form of the danger is an emanation of energy.
With the template for the written message ready, it was now necessary to come up with a code, a pictogram, that can effectively communicate with anyone from the future, regardless of the language or culture, the severity of the damage or the danger the location that they are standing over possesses. Because symbols and pictograms can be deduced from other cultural remnants, even just tales, similar to how the Egyptian scarab had its meaning reconstructed from myth. The scarab represented rebirth, regeneration, the eternal cycle of life, death, and resurrection. The ancient Egyptians associated the scarab beetle with the sun god who was believed to roll the sun across the sky every morning, just as the beetle rolls a ball of dung. This particular behavior got the beetle's attribution to the cycle of life and creation. The scarab became a widespread symbol of hope, etched and marked onto jewelry, seals, and amulets. Modern man was then able to reconstruct the meaning exactly because of how prevalent the scarab was. Similarly, a symbol or pictogram carrying the meaning of radiation or biohazard could be reconstructed, granted we can get it into such prevalent use either in cultural or scientific avenues. The first line of thought was not to use any abstract geometric shapes or symbol to denote a dangerous emanating energy, but instead to stick to the human figure, a detailed image of the face in agony or nausea, a figure in direct exposure to the radiation. The proposed level 2 message of a pictogram included the iconic scream face, perhaps in hopes that the face is culturally relevant to us, enough so that the future historians could easily associate it with shock or danger, along with the textual warning not to dig at the site before 12,000 AD, granted that they know what an Anno Domini is. It also includes the ever-present radiation trefoil. The researchers argued that the meaning of symbols is harder than language to preserve and convey, which could make the trefoil something of an extension, something that could help the future civilizations associate the deadly emanation of energy with. They could identify and stay away from zones with such a symbol present, but maybe only after uncovering and overcoming the first deep geological repository. All these solutions still hold a massive assumption of proper interpretation, and that is also its biggest flaw. You can't just have them take one look at the inscriptions, decide it was too complex to decode on site, ship it off to a facility, and then begin digging anyways. We want them to be deterred. If the symbols fail, the land itself must speak. And so, the hostile landscapes were proposed. We all know of hostile architecture, those pesky spikes and handrails placed at awkward positions which generally end up being a menace to everyday life. The intention with the hostile landscapes were pretty much the same, if not more of a nuisance. The idea was to make the land uninhabitable without actually presenting any direct threat to life. After ideas were proposed and drafts were drawn, the panel analyzed markedness on how to make a landscape look artificial, so no one mistakes it for a natural formation. They analyzed substantiality, how to make it look massive and permanent, so that it commands respect rather than curiosity. And they analyzed rhythm, the method to use repetition to create a sense of unease. After breaking down the DNA of a place, they came to a riveting conclusion. The first layer of warning isn't a sign. The first layer of warning is the site itself. The spike fields. Massive commanding spikes jut out from the ground in unnatural angles and from within each other. They cast uncanny shadows onto the terrain and appears to be the gateway to an eldritch forest. The intention is clear: stay out of this place. The land stretches for miles across, charred in a deep black that seems to be the abyss itself. The black material, basalt, absorbs heat from the scorching desert sun and rises the temperature of the area to an abnormally high level. It just is not physically possible for life to thrive here. Perhaps whoever made this made it so, as there is no purpose for life to thrive here. There are weird pyramids all across, seemingly diverging from a central square area. They appear to be strikes of lightning from up above, and mysteriously figured pyramids emanating from a source when observed from the ground. They have inscriptions etched onto them, one of which depicts the human face in agony and sickness. What lies in the enclosed area? Is it really a good idea to dig deeper before we figure that out? But there is a flaw, a fatal human flaw in all these designs. They look epic. Because these places don't feel abandoned or obsolete, they feel intentional. And humans don't avoid intentional places. We excavate them and put them on pedestals, mythologize them, analyze and explore everything about them because that's the innate curiosity of humanity. If I saw a massive field of spikes in the desert, I wouldn't run away. I'd want to go straight to the center. I'd assume there was something incredible hidden inside. And so, in our attempt to build a warning, we might have accidentally built a shrine. So how do we stop a human? It seems spending millions of dollars on fortifying and marking these places to the best of our ability is the only thing we can do. With all this research and study, the experts note that perhaps we had become too marker-prone, that despite all we do, the most effective marker for any intruder will be a relatively limited amount of sickness or death caused by radioactive waste. In other words, it could be a self-correcting process wherein they will stop excavations without appropriate precautions at the very least after they realize through mortal sacrifice that this place is not a place of honor.